Just before dawn on July 24, 2002, 5 armed postal inspectors knocked on the door of an Upper East Side apartment in Manhattan. Inside was a 78-year-old man, frail, soft-spoken, a grandfather. His name was John Rigas. Within hours, he'd be paraded before cameras in handcuffs, accused of what the SEC called one of the most extensive financial frauds ever to take place at a public company. The numbers were staggering. Over $2.3 billion in debt hidden. Over $3 billion diverted from a publicly traded corporation into the pockets of one family. Adelphia Communications, America's 6th largest cable provider, was already in bankruptcy. 5.5 million customers, 15,000 employees, a stock price that collapsed from over $20 to 79 cents in 10 weeks. Deputy Attorney General Larry Thompson delivered the phrase that would define this scandal. The Rigas family had treated Adelphia as their own personal piggy bank. But here's what made this case unusual. John Rigas didn't flee. He didn't sell his stock. He didn't seem to believe he'd done anything wrong. So how does a man build a $5 billion empire from a $300 bet, then hollow it out from the inside? Empire building. The story begins in 1952 in Coudersport, Pennsylvania, a small Appalachian town with fewer than 3,000 people. John Rigas, a young Army veteran and son of Greek immigrants, purchased his first cable franchise for $300. Cable barely existed then. Only 60 systems operated in the entire country. Rigas sold subscriptions door to door. He named the company Adelphia, Greek for brothers, because he ran it with his brother Gus. For decades, that's exactly what it was. A family operation, local, and deeply embedded in the community. Rigas kept Coudersport theater tickets at $3.50. He threw a Christmas party for over 1,000 children every year. He brought symphony orchestras to town for free concerts. In Coudersport, the Rigas name meant generosity. The cable industry exploded in the 1980s, and Rigas was ready. He consolidated 5 cable properties under the Adelphia name, took the company public in 1986, and launched aggressive acquisitions. His strategy was disciplined. He only bought systems adjacent to ones he already owned, clustering them for efficiency. By 1992, Adelphia had the highest operating margin in the cable industry, 57%, against an average of 35%. By 1999, Adelphia had completed $3 billion acquisitions in 4 months, surpassing 5 million subscribers. John Rigas's 3 sons held the top executive positions: Timothy as CFO, Michael running operations, James leading strategy. The family controlled 5 of 9 board seats and 60% of voting power. This was still a family business. Only now it was publicly traded. That distinction would prove fatal. Fraud mechanism. Explained clearly. To understand how the Rigas family extracted billions, you need to understand one system, the Cash Management System, or CMS. Think of it as one enormous bank account. Money from Adelphia's operations, borrowings, and stock offerings all flowed in. But so did money from separate businesses owned personally by the Rigas family. These private entities were never consolidated into Adelphia's public financial statements, yet they shared the same pool of cash. The family could borrow in Adelphia's name, using its credit backed by its assets, then withdraw proceeds through their private entities. The debt stayed on Adelphia's books. The cash vanished into family hands. Between 1999 and 2002, over $2.3 billion in debt was hidden on the books of unconsolidated Rigas-controlled affiliates. The SEC found that defendants created sham transactions backed by fictitious documents to make debts appear repaid when they had simply been moved. But hiding Debt was only part of it. The family inflated performance across the board. They booked fake management fees from Rigas-owned businesses. They counted subscribers who didn't belong to Adelphia, 43,000 in Brazil and Venezuela from minority state companies, 60,000 home security customers who never subscribed to cable. They overstated earnings by $160 million in 2000 and $210 million in 2001. The siphoned money funded an extraordinary lifestyle: a $13 million golf course on family land, condominiums in Manhattan, Colorado, and Cancun, timber rights for $26 million to preserve the view from John Rigas's home, $130 million invested in the Buffalo Sabres, company jets for African safaris, 2 Christmas trees flown to New York for his daughter at $6,000. His wife received a $371,000 decorating contract using furniture from a Rigas-owned company. Red flags. So why wasn't this caught? Adelphia was famously secretive. Headquarters sat in Coudersport, requiring a flight to Buffalo, then a puddle jumper. Analysts rarely visited. The family disclosed minimal financial detail. One industry insider later said, "I don't even think the Rigases worked hard to hide things. They had just always been marching to their own beat." By late 2001, Wall Street questioned whether Adelphia could manage its acquisition debt. Interest expenses didn't match reported liabilities. Subscriber numbers seemed inconsistent, but nobody connected the dots. Until March 27, 2002, when Adelphia employees disclosed $2.3 billion in unrecorded debt borrowed through the Rigas family's private trust, Highland Holdings. System failure analysis. This wasn't just one family's greed, it was structural. Adelphia never transitioned from a private family operation to a genuine public company. The Rigas family controlled the board, the executive suite, and the cash. External safeguards failed entirely. Deloitte and Touche, Adelphia's auditor, later paid $50 million to settle SEC charges for failing to implement procedures designed to detect illegal acts at the company. Analysts rewarded subscriber growth and earnings beats without questioning the numbers underneath. Geographic isolation insulated the company from scrutiny. Adelphia became one of the central catalysts for the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, which overhauled corporate governance standards precisely because cases like this revealed how deeply the system's defenses could fail. Collapse. After the March 2002 disclosure, events accelerated. Adelphia's stock dropped 65% in weeks. The SEC and federal prosecutors launched parallel investigations. The Rigas family was forced to surrender control, but even after disclosure, the fraud continued. The family secretly diverted another $174 million to pay personal margin loans. By June, the stock sat below $1. NASDAQ delisted it. On June 25th, Adelphia filed for Chapter 11, carrying $18.6 billion in debt. The company's assets were eventually acquired by Time Warner Cable and Comcast in 2006. The name Adelphia disappeared. Human cost. The collapse destroyed more than a corporation. 15,000 employees lost jobs. Many lost retirement savings tied to Adelphia stock. Prosecutors estimated investor losses exceeding $60 billion. In Coudersport, the town Rigas had sustained for 50 years, the largest employer vanished. On June 20th, 2005, an 80-year-old John Rigas shuffled to a lectern in a Manhattan courtroom. He spoke softly to Judge Leonard Sand. "In my heart and in my conscience, I'll go to my grave believing that I did nothing but try to improve the conditions of my employees." The judge gave him 15 years. Timothy received 20. As Rigas left the courthouse, reporters asked how it felt watching his son be sentenced. He said only, "It just crushes me." Judge Sand's words were blunt. To be a great philanthropist with other people's money is really not very persuasive. He called the case a tragedy lacking in heroes. Psychological autopsy. What makes this case psychologically distinct is that John Rigas may have genuinely believed his own narrative. Unlike the architects of Enron or WorldCom, the Rigas family never engaged in insider selling. They never cashed out. This suggests they didn't plan to destroy Adelphia. They likely believed the line between family money and company money didn't exist, because for the first 34 years before going public, it didn't. The fraud escalated not through a master plan, but through incremental boundary violations compounding year after year. Each withdrawal easier than the last, each fabricated number slightly larger. This is the quiet machinery of corporate fraud. Not a mastermind in a dark room, but a family that kept taking because every system designed to stop them was absent, captured, or simply not paying attention. Reflective ending. John Rigas was released from prison early in 2016 after a terminal cancer diagnosis. Against all expectations, he survived. He returned to Coudersport, the town where everything started. He died there on September 30th, 2021, at 96. He turned $300 into a $5 billion empire, then brought it all down, not through dramatic betrayal, but through something quieter. The refusal to accept that what you built no longer belongs only to you. Adelphia meant brothers. It was undone by a family that never learned where the family ended and the public began. That confusion didn't just destroy a company. It erased the savings of thousands who trusted a name on a stock ticker to mean something real. Every fraud, ultimately, is a story about trust. Who gives it, who exploits it, and the distance between the two.